This is the Compressor Guru. I'm here at John Doe's garage. John's retired, but he doesn't want any more work, so we're not advertising for him today. But he's an old machinist, and he knows what he's doing. And I have a couple of these cylinders off a customer compressor, and he is currently setting things up. We're going to talk to John about the process here. We did a machine shop talk a while back where we polished polished a journal for you. But since these are going to get honed by a professional, we thought we'd bring the camera in here today and show you what we're doing. John's going to show you about this power hone.
Okay.
Hi to the camera.
How you doing? We're going to set this up for depth for the stroke so it goes up and down to correct the mount. And we have to set the stops on the machine here.
What kind of machine is this?
This is a Hone Pro 1 power hone. And it's a lot easier than breaking your arms with a drill.
Okay. And if you were doing a V8 engine, you'd be done already instead of the half-hour setup time we had.
The setup time is what took a long time in this, yes.
Yes, you can see all the C-clamps holding the cylinder down here that's made this a more interesting job.
So now we have to set these stops.
That's the bottom stop.
Mm-hmm.
I know you got your arm hold yourself, but we can't see.
I'm obstructing the view.
You are.
Okay. Now you can see a little bit better.
Okay, so
I have to tighten this up. It should stop there.
now what are these gauges on here?
Okay, this is a amp gauge which tells you when the hone is going up and down, if the cylinder is tight in one spot, the amperage, it'll pull more amperage on the motor to turn this honing head.
Okay.
And when it's pretty well equalized, that means the cylinder is straight. If it's not pulling any more amperage. If it's pulling like 6 amps and then it jumps to 9 or 12, that means that's a tight spot in the cylinder. Now on a combustion engine, that might have an effect. On an air pump, very little effect.
Okay.
And this gauge right here, that gauge right there is the air pressure that adjusts the speed, the stroke on a speed up and down.
Oh, okay.
Controlled by this knob here. Then these are just the spindle speeds, the lubrication, and whatever.
Okay.
Okay, and we should be almost ready to start. I'm going to make like a dry run here. We have to put the guard on. And the stroke. Oh. I have to hook
Need air.
I have to hook the air up to it. Okay. Stroke. Let's see what happens here. We'll put a little drag on it.
This is where if the wife is here, we'd have 2 cameras going.
Let's hope it doesn't spin.
Don't say that.
See, we have drag on the motor. The cylinder's fairly real straight, actually.
Good.
The amperage on the motor.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's not gonna need much at all.
Usually all we have to have done is break the plates, so it'll take a new set of rings.
Right.
Now let's talk about rings. There'd be cast iron rings going into this, so what grit stone do you use?
We want to, for a cast iron ring, usually around a 200 to a 240 grit. This is 240 right here, right now, so it'll be fine. And I usually use a brush hone when I'm done, but I don't know if my brush hone is going to be big enough to do this or not, but we'll try it. That's just about the right now. If you're going with a moly ring, now a chrome ring, which is a solid chrome ring, uses a much coarser grit because it's cut sharper. The chrome wears into it. Or a moly ring, you want maybe a 500 or 600 grit, so the moly seats almost instantly, and then it takes the heat real well. But you have to use about a 400, 500, or 600 grit stone with a moly ring.
Okay, but this being cast iron with a cast iron ring, 200 to 300.
200 to 300 is fine. 240, 200 to 300. You can see the finish on the cylinder wall already. It looks very strong. We'll look at the water marks at the bottom in the second here to see if we clean that up. The board is actually clean already. Except for the bottom, we don't know. We're going to look through it in about 2 seconds. Let's see what happened. It's a thing of beauty.
All right.
Beautiful the whole way up and down.
Now, when I hone them myself, I try to get more of a crosshatch in it. Is that okay?
Well, what the crosshatch does, the steeper the crosshatch, the more oil it pushes down faster, because the ring is pushing down, and the crosshatch, say a 45 degree, it's easier to push that oil down a 45 degree than it is like a 30 degree. A 30 degree lets more oil on the cylinder to keep it lubricated better in like a dusty, dirty application, where like on a race engine or an automotive engine, the usually is between a 30 and a 45. But the 45 will let the oil move faster. The ring will push it down faster than the 30 because it's going downhill more at 45 degrees than it is at 30.
Okay, so with a compressor or an air pump, as you're calling them, the 30 degree is actually more appropriate for this machine.
Yes.
43 years of doing this, I just learned something. Thank you.
Okay, well, see, that's true in being an automotive engine or an air engine, but on an air engine, an air pump like a compressor, you don't have combustion. You're pushing air, but you don't have combustion pushing it back down. It's just drawing air in to push air up. So you really don't have the piston rocking hardly at all, except when it's pushing air up to open the valve to let it into the tank. But this way, it'll keep a little more oil in the cylinders to keep lubricate better and probably last a lot longer. So that cylinder is actually done.
Excellent.
The only other thing I might try, I have a flex hone. Let me go get it and see if it'll smooth that out. And this is called a flex hone. Yeah. What this does, if you magnify the honing pattern on this cylinder, it would be real jaggy. If you filed a piece of metal, it would look like that. Now this flex hone, what it will do, it'll break off, smooth out the jagged edges, so the rings seat almost instantly.
Great.
And that's what this does.
Now that's not a dingleberry or a ball hone.
No, I have several of those down there too. But this is to finish even with a ball hone, like if you use a 200 or 220 grit, you should finish it with this. And what it does, like I say, if you magnify this, it's real jaggy. When you run this through here, and the metal looks like it's torn, but this will smooth those rough edges off. And we'll do this here in a second. I'm gonna plug it in.
That's great. Advertise to your friends that you don't want business from.
Usually only takes about 10 or 20 strokes to knock those edges off. And that's it. Okay, so that is done. Okay, the bigger the bore is, the more piston the cylinder wall clearance. You're referring to the clearance between the piston and here.
Correct.
On the skirt of the piston.
Yes.
Okay, what the skirt of the piston also does is as the crankshaft rotates, when it changes direction at the bottom and the top, it tries to rock that piston. So the longer the skirt, now these compressor pistons have a real long skirt on them, so they're not going to hardly rock at all. A rule of thumb is usually with the cast piston, now these don't get hot they get hot but not like an internal combustion engine. They usually want like 1.5 to 2 thousandths per inch of cylinder bore is.
What
now,
you're talking the extrusion gap, the distance between the piston and the cylinder.
The cylinder wall and the skirt of the piston.
Right.
The skirt of the piston is usually a little bit bigger right here at the bottom of the skirt. It's usually a little bit bigger than it is up here.
Right.
And that's because it's hotter up here and this expands, and down here it does not expand as much. But this also is what prevents the piston from going like this.
Right.
Rocking. Now, are you replacing this piston?
I want your opinion on that. Let me get a real good close-up of that. I can take close-ups later at the shop, but
Well,
I already have it ordered
it's probably not that much,
on there. Okay.
but this piston here would probably be okay, but I don't like the looks of that. It looks like it was overheating right there, or not lubrication.
Not lubrication. This compressor was developing water in the oil from condensation.
Okay.
It was a big compressor with low usage, and it would heat up in the morning, cool off, heat up, cool off, and every time it did that, it'd make a drop of water in the oil, and then they were having all kinds of water in the oil. And
Breaks down lubrication.
oh yeah, you should see the crank or well, look at the connecting rod, inside the connecting rod.
Wow.
And
You are going to replace that?
oh, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
there was an 1/8 inch of play between the bearing and that rod.
Well, that's the only good thing about an aluminum rod. Usually, if the aluminum adheres to the journal on a crank, like if you use, I use caustic soda to clean with, the caustic will eat the aluminum off and the crank's like new.
Oh, well, the nice part about this is the cranks in these is just a rough shaft, and we actually put a new rod journal on with the rod and bearing kit. They give you a new rod journal,
no
and you
kidding.
actually clamp it on after you have the rods over the journal. You actually push the bearing on, put a clamp on it after you put the rods on, and you replace the rod journal as well as the rods.
But this is what causes this, is like I say, it's a lack of lubrication.
Or high heat.
Pardon me?
Or high heat.
Or high heat. Now, if that was a new piston, you put it in there, and it did that instantly, that means that the cylinder is too tight. There's not enough
Right.
piston to cylinder wall clearance. And like I said, in most cases, it's usually like 1/1000th to 1/1000th to inch of cylinder bore.
Per diameter.
That's on an automotive engine, but on these, it wouldn't matter. It could be a little bit
That's
less.
spec on Quincy. That 6-inch piston calls for 9,000 clearance.
On a 6-inch piston?
Yes.
Okay, that'd be like 1/1000th per inch of
Right.
cylinder bore,
And
yeah.
that is what Quincy calls for.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I know another thing I've done, like on lawnmower engines and stuff like that with aluminum rods. You put bore the block, put new piston and rings in it. Even if you brush on it, in most cases the rod will break because it's putting more drag on this one. It just takes more effort to make the piston go up and down, and that rod has been through so many cycles, millions and millions of cycles going up and down, that it gets weak and they break
yeah,
on a combustion engine. So
yeah,
you should, if you're going to replace the piston, even on a agricultural engine, exchange the rod if it's an aluminum rod. Now, if
Yeah.
it's a steel rod with inserts, then you're okay.
right.
But okay,
It's funny you say that because Quincy only has aluminum rods, and they have steel inserts for the journals, and they have brass bushings. I brought the bushings up here and had you resize wrist pin
Okay.
bushings for me. I've never changed a Quincy rod for them breaking. I've changed them because they've gotten hot, run out of lubrication, gone out around at the journal end. But now there's an aluminum rod that now everything about a Quincy is overbuilt. Do they last forever because they're so overbuilt?
probably. Doesn't this rod look like it's not big enough for a piston?
Well, I'll
inside?
tell you what, when I'm back at the shop, I'm going to take a picture of a Quincy 10 horsepower rod and that rod, because that's 10 horsepower,
Yeah.
and that Quincy rod's 3 times as thick.
I was gonna say, like, that rod there just looks like a boy sending a boy out to do a man's job.
Yeah,
And apparently it works, but when you see, like, say, you compare a Quincy to, and what did you say that one there is?
that's an Ingersoll
An
IR.
Ingersoll. And just like automotive engine and a race engine, your like your high performance gas, alcohol engines, they use aluminum rods, but they're only good for maybe 10 or 20 passes, then they throw them
Right.
away. They use an example. Would you sooner have your crankshaft being pounded on by a sledgehammer made from iron or a sledgehammer made from aluminum?
Oh,
Which is talking about the connecting rod. Aluminum connecting rod actually cushions some of the blow to the crankshaft,
yeah,
but it does not have the longevity of a forged steel rod.
okay.
But
So,
they're lighter weight.
yep.
If you had told me that was gonna work, I thought we're just wasting time here when you did that. I'm like,
So we're on our second cylinder. Total time to hone is what, 20 seconds? And we've had an hour of setup.
Let's see if that'll. That should do it, hopefully. That's what I wanted to check.
You're coming up too high yet. Watching that amp meter, it's nice and straight. Or does that only matter when you get turned in a little bit?
Hardly any load on it. Good and straight. moving, when this comes down, I'm hitting the inside of the cylinder wall, it's leaning a little bit, which really shouldn't matter. Let's see if we're looking like this. And that shoulder, it seems like when it does that, I think that's good.
Total home time 40 seconds. Total setup time an hour and 10 minutes. Now if you were doing a V8 block, you'd have had your setup time, all of them done and been out of here in 20 minutes, right? But time-wise on a V8, what are you looking time-wise to do a V8?
The whole block?
Yeah.
Hour.
So it took you as long to do this. Two cylinders that had to be set up individually. It took you longer to do two cylinders than it did to do a whole engine block.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, two ahead of me here.
We're going to try to brush on that a little bit. And there you are.
Okay.
That's why you go someplace to get a 5-minute job done, and it takes hours sometimes
Yeah.
because of simple stuff like that.
So John, once again, how much meat did you take out of the cylinder?
That one there, I'm going to say probably maybe 1,000. That's about
And
it.
the big one?
The big one, 1.5 maybe. That's
Yeah.
about it. Because we're using a real fine stone, and I know to take a 4-inch cylinder, say a 4-inch cylinder, to take 1,000ths out with a 300 or 400 grit, it usually takes about 40 strokes or 50 strokes. Now, we didn't, I don't know if we did 40 or 50, I doubt
I
it.
doubt it.
So,
They cleaned up beautiful.
yeah. And the thing about it, like I say, with an air pump, you don't get you hardly ever get a ridge at the top.
Right,
Because you don't have the combustion trying to twist the piston.
right. Well, you'll get a ridge when they don't have good filters.
Dirt.
The Quincy's
Dirt.
on the drag lines used to get ridges all the time, and some of them couldn't be saved. We sleeved some of them. We used to have the shop down in the Fisher shop re-sleeved a bunch for me. John Doe,
John?
you don't want any more work. You're retired.
Well, I'm retired, but that's basically in writing.
Okay.
I get Social Security check and stuff like that, but that's about the extent of my retirement. But my work, I have to turn a lot of work away because I can only handle so much.
Yeah.
And I hate to do that to people, but you have to be honest with people. If somebody wants to bring something here, and I'll tell them it might take me 2 or 3 months. If they want to let it here, I'll get to it. But it's going to be 2 or 3 months. I have stuff, that engine block right there has been here for about 4 months. However, it's next.
Okay.
It's next.
Yeah, I didn't bring you a whole engine block. I brought you 2 cylinders,
Yeah,
but
well,
it took a long time. But
There's people that will bring, could you check to see if my engine block needs bored? But when they come, they bring the crankshaft, the connecting rods, the pistons, the heads, and they lay them outside the door at night, and they put their name on it.
well, we're not advertising where you are so that you don't get pounded. Folks, this is my top secret machine shop friend. And we're not going to advertise for him because he is overwhelmed now. How old are you, John?
75.
Holy crap, you look good for 75. So you're pounding right along at 75, and you keep pounding. I'll keep bringing you stuff. We'll come back and we'll let you show us how to resize connecting rods.
Sure.
Next time I get a Quincy, actually I got a Quincy coming here in the fall, or in the winter. And we'll do that. And we thank you very much for showing us your shop and showing us how your automatic hone works. That's an automatic hone?
Yeah, a power home.
Power hone. We appreciate you showing us how it works. Appreciate your time. And most of all, we appreciate your experience. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for coming here.
Appreciate it. This is the Compressor Guru. I'm not sure I'll even be on camera in this one, but this is the Compressor Guru. Thank you. Like, subscribe, and God bless. We got another machine shop episode coming. It's going to be a little while, but stay tuned, and we'll be back up and visit John. Have a great day. Now go watch another one of my videos.